Islam, Islam, Islamism. Praise Allah, honors to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali, honors to the Moorish Science Temple of America for the uplifting of fallen humanity, honors to Marcus Messiah Garvey Bay and his organization, the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA, founded in 1914 AD. Honors to all the harbingers who paved the way for the children to be in more science, and praise Allah to the membership and the leaders of the Moorish Science of America here, there, and everywhere. Today's topic is slave, free or slave, or whichever you want to call it. It seems to me that every time there's an issue that goes on, either politically, individually, or collectively, we seem to lose sight of issues that has came upon us. When we see the conditions that raise our eyebrow, that raises our state of mind, and we feel like the common people who are Negro, blacks, coloreds, etc., so-called white people, etc., who stands up and can't stand the injustice that is not going on. So we have to have a clear mindset of what it is that we're doing to prepare ourselves to be free from the Roman yoke and law. When we see ourselves as our ancestors have struggled in this nation and flip-flopped it to the democracy side instead of the republic side, we have lost sight of nationality and culture. Nationality and culture is everything. I don't care what the so-called Islam. I don't care what's going on with the state of mind of what you identify yourself as. Because what you identify yourself as an individual who's a slave mind. And when a person who's an individual who identified himself as a slave mind, we see where we're losing track of who we are as a people, or who we are as a nation of people with a nationality and a culture and a religion, unlike the oppressor's way of thinking, who oppresses his own people just as well as oppress the so-called Negro, blacks, and coloreds, Latino, Chicano, Hispanic, etc. Now, when we understand where we're lost as a group of people, then we need to understand that it takes common sense to understand the conditions, so that way we can make a change to better our condition. And the only way we can better our condition is looking at others of other nations, seeing that the Chinese man has his flag, we see that the Japanese man has his flag, we see that the Vietnamese and the Sudanese and the Cubans and the Italians and the Germans got their flag, and they got their law of ordinance of a constitution, and so on and so on. But all in all, we're behind enemy lines because we want to identify ourselves with a crayon, and this particular crayon color does not even fit the description of the melanin or the state of mind of our group of people, because we're the first, and since we're the first, we have became last, and the last, which is the people who are 6,000 years old, who are the Europeans, they're the ones who are first. They're the ones who are in power. Because guess what? The wicked rules everything. And guess what? I am not deprived of my nationality culture, because your brother Man Moore's life is truly about that life. Now, I want y'all to really sit down and think, why is it that when someone asks you what your nationality is, you give an answer that is totally irrelevant to what your nationality is? You want to give two, three, four, five, six, seven different answers that's totally irrelevant. And the only reason why I say it's totally irrelevant, because there's no such thing as black people. Now, if you want to refer to a state of mind of a people, then we can go there with the adjectives that describe, that's a description of the state of mind of the group of people as a whole, to 90% who are non-European sympathizers, who are truly black people, because the word black means evil. Now, look at what the slaveholder did in 1913. He took over the banking system all over the world. He got access to the drugs. He got access to the alcohol. He's the one who's making laws, that's a so, on Jekyll Island and all that stuff. So let me catch you all up to speed on what's really going on. So when you start understanding that you need to look at a piece of paper or a crayon or anything that's black, and then show some type of proof of evidence that this same color that's a crayon matches your skin complexion, then I applaud you, then I will yield, then I will follow your teachings. But other than that, I'm not going to do so. Because there's no such people as a black people. Can a man be a Negro, black, or colored, or Ethiopian? No. Why? Because man is made after the image and likeness of God Allah. This is what it says in the questionnaire. I could prove it in the Moorish questionnaire for Moorish children, and we have 101 questions and answers. Now the question is, will you define white? White means purity. Purity means God, and God means rule of the land. When we start understanding where there is no group of people who do not have a nationality, don't have a culture, or don't have anything pertaining to law to protect that group of people or that body politic, that makes them out of law. Give me a few minutes while I demonstrate and unfold, because we are lost in the sauce, and that goes for the people of Guam, Puerto Rico, Costa Rica, the Solomon Islands, the Filipinos. You draw what I'm saying? And the only reason why I'm bringing these names out, because if a group of people are paying homage to the pimp, to the slaveholder, then that means that you have lost the war. That means you're subjected to their way of thinking, their penal codes and laws and statutes and all this other stuff. And then since you're going to be subservient and be a slave to the so-called white power structure anyways, that means that you have no power or no body politic or law to begin with to protect you against the powers that be. Now, before I start, I see there's plenty of people in this chat, but I'm going to give my shout out right quick. Since it's being upon request, I see Brother G, let's see, GPL says, can you give me a shout out? It's my birthday. And heaven high to you. And happy solo return, uh, GPL. And we have here we got Nicole Ladaval, Islam, Heaven High, piece of bastards. Nibot revolves. I don't speak Spanish, so so I want to continue on what I have in store for you all today, which I strongly suggest that you all take heed to what's going on. Until y'all decide to take heed to what's going on in this whole so-called white power structure, then we're going to open up our hearts and minds to the truth, because the truth is the only thing that changes not. Islam. So I'm going to have a brother explain it better than I do about the Christian black codes. And they're Christian, and they're definitely slave.
Rising to the family. Great rise. Family.
To my melanated family and spiritually conscious brothers and sisters around the world, I am Brother Tommy, and it is time to get it in. One love family. This video is going to discuss the Christian Black Codes of 1724. The Christian Black Codes of 1724 were initiated during Reconstruction after the Civil War to control blacks after they were emancipated. Passed by southern states, instead of giving blacks the same rights as white people, the codes limited the blacks' freedom severely. They included that blacks had to be in service of a white person, that they could not have congregations together, that they could not speak out, and that they could not have weapons. They also included that blacks could not go out without a white supervisor, thus blacks had to take on the religions and holidays and gods of their white superiors. These same black codes were said to have been made null and void with the ratification of the 13th Amendment in 1865, although many southern states adopted black codes to keep former slaves from voting and imposed other restrictions. The 14th and 15th Amendments were to supposedly have eliminated these codes, but as you read them down below, and study the law of the land in conjunction with religion and politics, you'll discover through the 54 articles that these codes have been modernized in a disguise, and many are still in effect to this very day. Article 1 decrees the expulsion of the Jews from the colony. Article 2 make it imperative on masters to impart religious instruction to their slaves. Article 3 permits the exercise of the Roman Catholic's creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. Article 4 Negroes placed under the direction or supervision of any other person than a Catholic are liable to confiscation. Article 5 Sundays and holy days, holidays, are to be strictly observed. All Negroes found at work on these days are to be confiscated. Article 6 we forbid our white subjects of both sexes to marry with the blacks under penalty of being fined and subjected to some other arbitrary punishment. We forbid all curates, priests, or missionaries of our secular or regular clergy, and even our chaplains in our navy, to sanction such marriages. We also forbid all of our white subjects, and even the manumitted or freeborn blacks, to live in a state of concubinage with slaves. Should there be any issue from this kind of intercourse, it is our will that the person so offending, and the master of the slave should pay each a fine of 300 livres. Should said issue be the result of concubinage of the master his slave, said master shall not only pay the fine, but be deprived of the slave and of the children, who shall be adjudged to the hospital of the locality, and said slave shall be forever incapable of being set free. But shall this illicit intercourse have existed between a free black and his slave, when said slave according to the forms described by the church, said slave shall become free and legitimate, and in such case there shall be no application of the penalties mentioned in the present article. Article 7. The ceremonies and forms prescribed by the Ordinance of Blois and by the Edict of 1691, for marriage, shall be observed both with regard to free persons and slaves. But the consent of the father and mother of the slave is not necessary, that of the master shall be the only one required. Article 8. We forbid all curates to process to effect marriages between slaves without the proof of the consent of their master, and we also forbid all masters to force their slaves into marriages against their wills. Article 9. Children, issued from the marriage of slaves shall follow the condition of their parents, and shall belong to the master of the wife and not of the husband, if the husband and the wife have different masters. Article 10. If the husband be a slave, and the wife a free woman, it is our will that their children, of whatever sex they be, shall share the condition of their mother, and be as free as she, notwithstanding the servitude of their father, and if the father be free and the mother a slave, then the children shall be slaves. Article 11. Masters shall have their Christian slaves buried in consecrated ground. Article 12. We forbid slaves to carry offensive weapons or heavy sticks under the penalty of being whipped, and of having said weapons confiscated for the benefit of the person seizing the same. An exception is made in favor of those slaves who are hunting or are shooting for their masters, and who carry with them a written permission to that effect, or are being designated by some known mark or badge. Article 13. We forbid slaves belonging to different masters to gather in crowds either by day or by night, under the pretext of a wedding, or for any other cause, either at the dwelling or on the grounds of one of their masters or elsewhere, unless on the highways or in secluded places, under the penalty of corporal punishment, which shall not be less than the whip. In case of frequent offenses of the kind, the offenders shall be branded with the mark of the flower de luce, and should there be aggravating circumstances, capital punishment may be applied, at the discretions of the judges. We command all of our subject, be they officials or not, to seize offenders, to arrest and conduct them to prison, although there should be not judgment against them. Article 14. Masters who shall be convicted of having permitted or tolerated such gatherings as aforesaid, composed of other slaves than their own, shall be sentenced individually, to indemnify their neighbors for the damages occasioned by said gatherings, and to pay, for the first time, a fine of 30 livres, and double that sum on the repetitions of the offense. Article 15. We forbid Negroes to sell any commodities, provisions, or produce of any kind, without the written permission of their masters, or without wearing their known marks or badges, and any persons purchasing anything from Negroes in violation of this article, shall be sentenced to pay a fine of 1,500 livres. Articles 16, 17, 18, and 19. Provide at length for the clothing of slaves and for their subsistence. Article 20. Slaves, who shall not be properly fed, clad, and provided for by their masters, may give information thereof to the Attorney General of the Superior Council, or to all the officers of an inferior jurisdiction, and may put the written exposition of their wrongs into the hands, upon which information, and even ex officio, shall the information come from another quarter, the Attorney General shall prosecute said masters without charging any cost to the complainant. It is our will that this regulation be observed in all accusations for crimes or barbarous and inhumane treatment brought by slaves against their masters. Article 21. Slaves who are disabled from working, either by old age, disease or otherwise, be the diseases incurable or nor, shall be fed and provided for by their masters, and in case they should have been abandoned by said masters, said slave shall be adjudged to the nearest hospital, to which said master shall be obliged to pay 8 cents a day for the food and maintenance of each one of these slaves, and for the payment of this sum, said hospital shall have a lien on the plantation masters. Article 22. We declare that slaves have no right to any kind of property but that all that they acquire either by their own industry, or by the ability of others, or by any other means or title whatever shall be the full property of their masters, and the children of said slaves, their fathers, mothers, their kindred or other relation either free or slave shall have no pretensions or claim thereto, either through testamentary nor positions or donations inter vivace, which dispositions and donations we declare null and void, and also whatever promise they may have entered into by persons incapable of disposing of anything and or participating to any contract. Article 23. Masters shall be responsible for what their slaves have done by their command, and also for what transactions they have permitted their slaves to do in their shops, in the particular line of commerce with whom they were entrusted, and in case said slaves should have acted without order or authorization of their masters, Said masters shall be responsible only for so much as has turned to their profit, and if said masters have not profited by the dining or transaction of their slaves, the procurium which the masters have permitted the slave to own, shall be subjected to all claims against said slaves, after deduction made by the masters of what may be due to them, and if said procurium should consist in whole or in part of merchandises in which the slaves had permission to traffic, the masters shall only come in for their share in common with the other creditors. Article 24. Slaves shall be incapable of all public functions, and of being constituted agents for any other person than their donations, either by testamentary dispositions or by acts inter vivos from the whites. Said donations shall be null and void, and the objects of said donations shall be applied to the benefits of the nearest hospital. Article 53. We commend all manumitted slaves to show the profoundest respect to their former masters, to their widows and children, and any injury or insult offered by said manumitted slaves to their former masters, their widows or children, shall be punished with more severity than if it had been offered to any other person. We, however, declared them exempt from the discharge of all duties or service, and from payment of all taxes or fees, or anything else in relation to their persons, or to their personal or real estate, either during the life or after the death of said slave. Article 54. We grant manumitted slaves the same rights, privileges, and immunities which are enjoyed by free-born persons. It is our pleasure that their merit in having acquired their freedom shall produce in their favor not only with regards to their persons, but also to their property, the same effects which our other subjects derive from the happy circumstances of their having been born free. In the name of the King. Thanks for listening, family. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until the next video. Peace.
Well, family, enough said. Because
I just got paid $6,000 for my car.
people are subjected to the jurisdiction of the state that they were born under, which makes them a slave. Majority of over 90% people who are born here, regardless of what nation they come from, or they're born here in the United States Corporation, they're a slave. Always remember that. Because if you're not born in your nation, then that means that you are going to be a slave when you sign up to be a citizen here to begin with, whether you're born here or not. I got something on my heart. So, need y'all to listen to this, because this is relevant. So, I need y'all to take heed to what is being said right now.
Energy. I am Shade Renee L, all rights reserved, and I'm back at it again with another video. Today I'm going to be doing a quick video on Abraham Lincoln and William Dungy, the Black Bill versus Black Laws. And per usual, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to just read straight through it. Please like, share, subscribe. Among 10 original Abraham Lincoln documents discovered last summer in the DeWitt County Courthouse at Illinois is a bond for costs in William Dungy versus Joseph Spencer. Written but not signed by Abraham Lincoln, the bond was part of an interesting slander case. Family disputes that degenerated into slanderous name-calling feuds frequently appeared in antebellum Illinois circuit courts. Such cases reflected the intent of American slander law to safeguard an individual's good reputation in the community against petty character assassination. Abraham Lincoln Scroll down. Abraham Lincoln realized the value of reputation and declared in his first printed political speech that every man is said to have his peculiar ambition. I have no other so great as that of being truly esteemed of my fellow men. One unique slander case Abraham Lincoln argued at the Dwight County Circuit Court, Clinton, Illinois, in the May and October 1855, terms involved much more than a defamation of character and suggested that Huck Finn's friend, Jim, might have reconsidered his plan of escape to freedom. I reckoned at by 4 in the morning, I'd slip in just before daylight and swim ashore and take to the woods on the Illinois side. In August of 1851, William Dundee, a dark-skinned young man of Portuguese descent, married a European woman, Joseph Spencer's sister. A family quarrel ensued, which became so bitter that in January 1855, Joseph Spencer, a European, claimed throughout the community that his brother-in-law, Black Bill, was a Negro. Since 1819, Illinois state laws permitted quasi-slavery and restricted the immigration of free blacks into the state, as other northern states passed personal liberty laws granting additional rights to free blacks. Illinois state toughened its stance against them. The 1848 Illinois State Constitution required the General Assembly to pass such laws as will effectively prohibit free persons of color from immigrating to and settling in the state. Those prohibitions against human rights were passed as the Black Law and went into force on February 12, 1853, the same date of the future emancipator Lincoln's 44th birthday. William Dungee faced the losing not only his reputation, but his marriage, his property, and his right to remain in Illinois. Section 10 of the 1853 Black Law stated that every person who shall have 1/4 Negro blood shall be deemed a mulatto. William Dungee retained Abraham Lincoln to squash the possibility that he might be judged a Negro, and therefore suffer the severe penalties under the 1853 Black Laws Act. Abraham Lincoln filed his declaration charging Joseph Spencer with slander on April 17, 1855, and sought $1,000 in damages. A game of legal chess occurred during the first hearing in May. Joseph Spencer's attorneys, Clifton H. Moore and Lawrence Weldon, also European, filed a demurrer to Abraham Lincoln's declaration, asserting that his charges were insufficient in law. Judge David Davis agreed that 2 of Abraham Lincoln's 3 charges were faulty. The case was continued, and Abraham Lincoln was allowed to amend the declaration. At the next term of court, October 1855, the Dungee case was argued before a jury. According to Joseph Spencer's attorney, Lawrence Weldon, Abraham Lincoln's talents as a trial lawyer were evident in his argument for William Dungee. Lawrence Weldon stated that Abraham Lincoln questioned Joseph Spencer's character by demonstrating how Joseph Spencer went from house to house, gabbing that William Dungee was a nigger. Attorney Lawrence Weldon emphasized that Abraham Lincoln's tone and pronunciation had a curious touch of the ludicrous, which instead of detracting, seemed to add to the effect. Abraham Lincoln further undermined Joseph Spencer by using humor to persuade the jury that there was reasonable doubt regarding William Dungee's race. The attorney Lawrence Weldon recalled Abraham Lincoln's statement. My client is not a Negro, though it is a crime to be a Negro. No crime to be born with a black skin. But my client is not a Negro. His skin may not be as white as ours, but I say he is not a Negro, though he may be a Moor. Abraham Lincoln. Mr. Lincoln, interrupted Judge Davis, scarcely able to restrain a smile. You mean a Moor? M-O-O-R? Not Moor? M-O-O-R-E? Well, Your Honor, Moore, M-O-O-R, not Clifton H. Moore, replied Mr. Lincoln, with a sweep of his long arm toward the table where Moore and I sat. I say my client may be a Moor, but he is not a Negro. Abraham Lincoln. Though the account may be apocryphal, Attorney Lawrence Weldon's recollection was characteristic of Abraham Lincoln's style. Abraham Lincoln then demolished the defendant's witnesses' testimony. Attorneys Clifton H. Moore and Lawrence Weldon had secured several depositions from residents in Dallas County, Tennessee, the Dungy family home. These witnesses stated that they had personally known the family and that the white community had regarded this judgment as illegal or under cross-examination. Abraham Lincoln argued that the testimony was hearsay, as the witnesses admitted none of them lived within 30 miles of the William Dungy's residence. On October 18, 1855, the jury returned a verdict of guilty and granted William Dungy $600 in damages plus court costs of $137.50. Abraham Lincoln charged a $25 fee, which Lawrence Weldon considered minimal. To avoid an appeal to the Illinois State Supreme Court, Abraham Lincoln persuaded William Dungy to remit $400 of the judgment in return for the defendant releasing all errors which may exist in the court record. Under Illinois state law, the defendant could not appeal the verdict, but could appeal only on errors of procedure or evidence. Abraham Lincoln had taught Joseph Spencer an extensive lesson in domestic relations. Note, legal and lawful analysis on status and estate and other ancillary support. The reader, researcher, or scholar is advised to review the foregoing synopsis of the William Dungy slander case of 1855 with keen consideration about the realities and facts that in law and in legal process, one's status also determines one's standing in relationship to one's estate. But, as in this case, the spurious tags, brand, and nom de guerre, such as black and Negro, being pejorative in status, compromising nom de guerre and misnomer, has, can, and will create serious and debilitating social and economic repercussions in relationship to William Dungy's estate. Such a damaged reputation would place all of his present and future hereditaments at risk and subject to escheat. Keep in mind that the European Roman colonial unum sanctum bulla and the doctrine of discovery conquest policies are operative and in effect upon the land and the aboriginal natural peoples of North America. These and other supporting bullas were imposed upon peoples of the Western Hemisphere. Therefore, one must be aware of the Inquisition Acts and edicts of the past, and thus be more cognizant of the social, economic, and political acts, actions, and politics of the present. A nom de guerre is, in its most literal meaning and application, a war name, a pseudonym. Status is the standing, the state, or the condition of the person. It relates to the legal relation of the individual to the rest of the community. Status relates to the rights, the duties, the capacities, and to the incapacities which determine a person to a given class. It is a legal personal relationship, not temporary in its nature, not terminable at the mere will of the parties, with which third parties and the state are concerned. And while the term status implies relation, it is not a mere relation. Status also means a state, because status signifies the condition or the circumstances in which one stands with regard to his property. The state is the interest which anyone has in land or in any other subject or property. An estate and land tenant and hereditament signifies such interest as the tenant has therein. In this sense, the state is constantly used in conveyances in connection with the words right, title, and interest, and is in a great degree synonymous with all of them. Hereditament are things capable of being inherited, be it corporeal or incorporeal. That includes all things real, personal, or mixed, and including not only land and everything therein, but also heirlooms and certain furniture which by custom may descend to the heir together with the land. At common law, corporeal herediments were and are physical objects.
Islam family, peace and blessings. This person who is narrating is truly a Moorish American Muslim. My sister L, you know, she's on point. You cannot sit here and try to tell me and try to change my mind that we are black people, and you know, when you call yourself black, you're calling yourself Negro, Italian, Negro, same thing. But you don't understand the slander and defamation of character and harassment you get while being classified as black. It doesn't make you free. It doesn't make you better than. It just make you less than. When the European slaveholders took over and they denationalized the Moors, they first denationalized themselves. That's what I said in my previous shows. But you have to really take into consideration that you don't have an army to begin with as black people. You don't have anything pertaining to law. The Constitution doesn't protect you because you're out of law. And then once you start understanding the language and how it works, you begin to see how far fetched you are from having things in life, the necessities, food, clothes, and shelter. When the brothers and sisters start really thinking that they need a nationality, and we got all this catastrophe going on here, there, across the state, you know, and all this rioting going on. People rioted back in 1990 something with Rodney King. They didn't hold the officers, European officers, accountable because, number one, they were classified as white, and two, Rodney King was classified as black. Regardless if you have surveillance camera on them or not, that means nothing. Because they're going to find a way to win. Whether they are a bigot, racist, and really can't stand the Asiatic people. We got people in other organizations keep pumping that blackness like it's something to be proud of. Really, it's something to be proud of. Cause look where it gets our people. We can't get no farther than having nationality. You can have all the college degrees you want. You can have all the education you want. You can have certificates in different uh, educational system that institutionalize your hearts and minds to think that this is what you to do to get a job, and that's not always the case. But like I said on the previous show, it goes a lot deeper than what meets the eyes. You got people who use the eyes for the wrong reason, but they don't walk by faith, but they gotta walk by sight. Faith without works is dead. So if you're not putting in the work to better your condition, then that means you messed up from the beginning. So once you start asking questions, and from what you remember growing up and what you were being called, and try to identify yourself, but the thing that's stopping the people from the ghetto to prosper, to get on land, is themselves. They want to continue to be promiscuous. The sisters want to be evil. So, in order for you to rise up, you have to first raise up your mentality. You gotta want more. And all you is here. So once we're able to understand our errors, we can be able to move forward collectively as a nation of people. That not about that life. But then again, the media say, that's what the common people follow. When are the people going to start doing something for themselves? Never forget. there's plenty of things. It's hard to find. People don't know where to go. People on the other side need help. Lean out to your own understanding. Can't even free yourself. You want to take a point, man. You got to look the state against your business. When it's time to proclaim your nationality, you turn a blind eye. But you protect your slaveholder. That's long. Peace and love.